Thanks for listening to our daily devotional. The devotional today is God Said It, That Settles It, from our daily Bible reading of Job 30 through 34. Many years ago, I heard Jim O'Connor as he stood up and he made the statement, God says it, I believe it, that settles it. And then he just waited. You see, he's trying to kind of bait people. If anybody had said, and I heard one time somebody did say amen, and he said, you're wrong. Whether I believe it or not, God said it, that settles it. You know, that's the attitude that must be had if we're to live soberly, righteously, and godly. And Job was struggling with that. As we've read through the book of Job, we've seen where his friends have told him, you had to have done something wrong. And Job says, no, I haven't sinned. And he goes back and forth. And then Elihu stands up and he, beginning in chapter 32, basically rebukes all three of the friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, because they spoke and had no knowledge, though they should have with the years, he said. And then he turns to Job and he says, you tried to justify yourself. And he does say, truthfully, that God is righteous. Doesn't matter what we do, what we think, what we say, God is righteous and holy. Well, finally in chapter 38, we find then where God appears to Job. Sometimes you need to be careful what you ask for. Job had said, oh, that I could talk to him. So now he's getting his opportunity. But in chapter 8 and verse 1 and 2, he says, when the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I'll demand of thee, and answer me. And then he begins, and he talks about all of the creation. And he says, where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, and knowest, or who hath stretched out the line upon it? I mean, he goes through in the next few chapters and basically puts Job on the spot. He says, declare it unto me. In other words, I am the creator. I am God. I created all. I gave them the breath of life. And Job knew, as we saw yesterday, that God had created mankind and we were made in his image. We had been brought forth from the womb. And so what God is telling Job is, here's the rules. If you're going to question me, you better be equal with me. Now, questioning God does not mean the same thing as going and seeing what he says. You see, they knew what God had said. They knew what he had expected of them. They lived it. Job said, I've lived righteously. And they knew, of course, that God was supreme. Well, you get over to our lives, and you realize, of course, we must have that same concept. We must realize that we have no right to question God. Romans the 9th chapter, whenever God spoke through Paul about the rejection of the Jewish nation, first thing he started with was he was sovereign. In other words, you don't have the right to ask me these questions, to challenge me about your rejection. The fact is, God said it, that settles it. Now, he does go on in subsequent chapters and tell why he did it. But you look, and today, so many times we face struggles, and we fall into the same trap that the devil loves because it begins to diminish our relationship with God. We want to bring God down to our level and say, I'm going to talk to you, when in fact, we ought to humble ourselves before God. James tells us that God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. We need to realize that there are those things that we'll never have answer to. Job never knew the answers. But there are secret things that belong to God, Deuteronomy 29 and 29. But he has revealed to us those things that we need. In the New Testament, he says that he, in 2 Peter 1 and verse 3, has given us all things that pertain to life and godliness. So I can search, I can see if there are answers there. But if they're not, it doesn't pertain to life and godliness. So why am I going to devote my whole life, like Job was, to trying to find answers? We need to look and realize that the submission to God, love him, humble ourselves before him, The Apostle Paul, whenever he found out that he, of course, was in sin, and he was confronted with Jesus Christ as we are through the Word, not personally as he was. But in Galatians, the 2nd chapter, he says, I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. In the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. You see, Paul said, I know who God is. I know what I was. I crucify myself, Romans 6, put to death. But whenever we do that, we determine to live not by our suppositions, our wants, our will, but by the faith of the Son of God. Those things revealed. So think about it. The next time we face a struggle and we get a little upset, where was God? Why did he? What? We need to look to God. Look to the promises. He'll never let me have more than I can bear. 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 13. Job proves that. But he's also given me everything I need to know. I can know the things that make me free, John 8 and verse 32, and I can continue in them, John 8 and verse 31. God said it. That settles it. You have a good day, and you will if we live according to his will, what God said. Thank you for listening. Remind you again, there's a link below this video if you'd like to follow along with our daily Bible reading. We're reading Monday through Friday. Be sure and check on that, and if not, continue listening to devotionals. And if there's anything that we can do to help you, you let us know, and we'll do everything we can. Thank you very much.